This is the AppleVis Extra.
Hello and welcome to the AppleVis Extra. This is episode number 64. My name is Dave Nason and I am joined firstly in the co-host chair by Anonymous, Thomas Domville. How are you today, Thomas?
I'm doing pretty well, Dave. Thanks for having me on again.
You've been busy on the podcast front.
I have been just pumping them out, haven't I?
Really, really good. Some cool how-tos and the Unleashed and what's going on. And here's another one for you tonight. So we are delighted to be joined by someone who'll be a familiar name to many of our listeners, I'm sure, from the site. From Woodside Apps, we have John Sturt. You'll know games such as Super Tile Smash, Wordfinder, and most recent, quite big hit was Night Commander. So, John, great to have you here.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So I mentioned some of the big games that you've had, and we'll probably come back to talk about them in a little detail. But firstly, you've been you're an app developer. How did you get into app development? Have you been doing it a long time, or kind of what's your background?
A long time ago, I went to college and uni and got a degree in computing. Spent a little bit of time in the commercial world, and then discovered that it wasn't for me. So then I spent the rest of quite a few years trying to do anything but computers. And I just did it, normal jobs as I call them, postman, warehouse, anything. And then I got to the age of about 31, and I found out that I couldn't see properly.
Okay.
And that's when the glaucoma kicked in, and blah blah blah. Ended up registered blind, so I kind of ended up doing this by default.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and I sort of got into it through Android to start with.
Yeah, well, nobody's perfect, John, but...
Well, no. And I tried to get on there, and I almost gave up. And then I thought, well, I'll just give it, old Apples a go, and so far it's been all right.
Fantastic. And when did you kind of start? Were you trying to develop apps in the early days of, 10 years ago kind of thing, or was it more recent?
It's only been about, 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So you've been blind all that time, right? So you...
I've been blind since, about 20 years now.
Okay, so there's no visual.
Yeah, I'm sort of visually impaired. I've got no sight in my right eye.
Mm-hmm.
I've got about 10% in my left, and that's basically what I work on.
And so you started 4 or 5 years ago. What were you working on at that time? Were there just a lot of just trying to see what it was like, a lot of just little basic things for yourself?
Well, about that time, I bought my first smartphone, which was a Samsung S2 Android version thing. And I was shocked at the prices of apps for this, for blind people. Like, there was one that gave you this sort of front end of it, and then they were charging 60 quid, and it was hopeless. And I thought, well, surely someone else can write something better. And no one did. So I thought, well, I might as well. And that's basically how it started. Because there was nothing out there that I wanted to play or could buy. I thought, I'll write it. And that's basically it.
Were you relearning how to code at that point, or did you kind of have that?
Well, I've always known how to code, from the degree. I've always been a programmer. Once you learn one language, you can always convert it into another one and another one. It's just different languages, basically. That's all it is. I used to be in C++ and C++, and
okay.
I don't use that. Well, I now go in Objective-C and Java, because that's what these things run on, basically. So that's kind of what you use.
And so what are the languages, or which one do you use now for when you come to app writing? I know there's like Swift, and I think there's...
Well, I don't go near Swift because it just looked a bit of a mess to me, I'm afraid. So I just use raw Objective-C. I just write in that. It takes an awful long time, and it takes a fair bit of time to get it through, but it's just what I do.
Wow. I will say I'm very impressed, because I also have a programming background as well, and I did some C work. If I were to take a look at C now as a blind person, I would probably just give up, because there's so much syntax and verbosity that's going on. I don't know how you are so patient you would have to virtually think of every line in your head, what it's saying, every syntax, because as you know, one little wrong mistake, and that line doesn't work. That gotta be that's got to be a disaster. I mean, is that really difficult to do?
It takes me longer to do stuff. I will admit that. The stuff that I would have done, just to look at a sheet of code on screen, you can spot a mistake a mile off it if you've got eyesight. But I have to cursor up and cursor down and then read it through and just basically sort it out that way. So it does take longer, but you can get around it if you're that way inclined.
Wow. I admire you for taking the courage to stick in there and taking that patient time. I've always wanted to go back and see how bad it would be for me to pick that back up, and because I understand if you are a native C user before, you're really right up the alley of that kind of coding. It'll be in your neighborhood. Well,
yeah. Still, most of the things nowadays are written in C. All these other languages are written in C, then compiled down. Most things sort of derive from C. You don't get much lower than C on the tree.
And you were able to take... So what was your first app that you wrote then?
The first one I wrote on Android was Talking Stones, which is basically... Because my wife, she's got an iPhone, and she's had an iPhone for quite some time, and she played something called Candy Crush.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there must be something out there for blind people. And, because I couldn't see a reason why you couldn't make it accessible. But nobody did. So I thought, well, I'd write one. And so it's sitting on, I've still got the files somewhere around here. So one day I'll probably get it onto Apple, but it's fairly complex.
Did it make it into the Google Play Store?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's recently been taken out of the Play Store for reasons that baffle me. I mean, Google are really shooting themselves in the foot at the moment because they're just coming up with all these different rules and regulations. My apps have been in and out of the App Store. You tick a box, it will go back in. You untick another box, it will come back out. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So I find iOS is much easier to code for. They do what the developers need and no more. Google seems to think, well, we'll do this and that and that and that. And that. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
It just makes it hard work.
Now, was that completely just for those that are blind, or did you have some low vision aspect to it?
Well, no. There's it had coloured tiles on it. You could have circles or big squares, and there was also options to put animations in it. Because I do try to not pitch my apps solely to a blind market or a VI blind market. I try and make them as appealing to everybody, which is not easy when you can't see properly.
I think that shows though, because you can. There's a lot of color and things like that in your games. They're not. They're not kind of lacking in that.
I sort of figure that if people because not everyone's one blind person in a family. So they're playing something and they might want to pass it on to someone else, and it might look a bit better to someone else. So I just try and make them as appealing to as many people as possible. Not only from a sort of coding point of view, but if someone else wants to buy it, it's more money for me.
And did you have to continuously go back to your wife and say, how does this look? How's that color? Is this shape right? And is this position in the right place?
I can see, I sort of put my face right up against the screen to see that. I can blow the screen up and all this sort of thing. Now, my wife is very famous for, if I hand her an app, she will find a bug in it and crash it within the first couple of seconds and just hand it back. So I don't tend to hand my apps over to my wife very often.
Yeah. It would be me, like I put the button in a weird, obscure place that you wouldn't see that as a blind person. It's like, oh, that sounds like the perfect place. And I would think that somebody like, why'd you put the button way over the kind of in the center bottom right or something? I've always been really curious how somebody like yourself are able to virtually see things in your mind. So I imagine you're designing things in your mind virtually how it's going to see display-wise.
Well, yeah. You sort of build a picture in your head, and plus, the 10% vision I have got, 10 plus vision, does help a lot. I mean, if I was totally blind, it would slow it down an awful lot.
Oh, I imagine.
What I am at the moment.
Oh, I imagine.
The design side of it.
Well, how long did that first app take you to create from day one to the point where you were pretty happy with?
Talking Stones took about 6 months.
Wow.
And loading, well, I had to learn Java basically to do that, which is not the greatest language on earth, but it's all right for what it does.
And you did that part-time, like on your own free time at night?
I do that. Basically, that's what I do. I mean, I can't get a job for love nor money.
Mm-hmm.
No one will employ me, so which is fair enough.
Well, your Super Tile Smash was indeed a big smash. I remember when that first came onto the site. That was one of the big ones you had out there, and I wonder, was that one the first one that it was on AppleVis that was under your name?
Well, I tried to get Apple to go under Woodside Apps, but they just won't have it, so I have to go under my own name. And I think the Wallpaper Machine was the first one I put up there.
Okay.
Which isn't. I've recently revisited it, and it's how to be polite. It's not very good. I could do a whole lot better now. I sort of look at it now and think, ooh, that's really ropey. So I think I've taken it off. I don't know the App Store, but I'm going to take it off sooner or later because it's just it's not good.
And is Super Tile Smash, is that a kind of a cousin of Talking Stones? Because you mentioned kind of about Tile.
Well, yeah, Super Tile Smash come off. I wrote Talking Stones, then I wrote Super Tile Smash on Android, and then I took that idea and put it onto iOS.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Super Tile Smash, I think that's still on Android actually. Super Tile Smash, I don't follow it that much. I've kind of forgotten about Google because it's such a pain to do anything on there. You constantly got to update things for no apparent reason. New rules come in every 5 to 10 minutes, and you've got to apply with them, or they take it off the App Store. It's just tiring. You're sort of putting it back on the App Store for no one to download. So what's the point?
Yeah, I gotta say, I was properly addicted to Super Tile Smash when it came out.
Yeah. I quite like it. Every now and again I'll pick it up and lose about half an hour on it.
Yeah, it's one of those games.
Well, it was definitely one of those games that was unique and everybody was craving for back. It was an absolutely fantastic, superb game. Gosh, that came out 2017, later 2017, and because I believe that was one of the nominees for the Golden Apples Award for 2017.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of buzz about that game, obviously, of course, and rightfully so. Just like David, I was addicted to it too. It was just a lot of fun. Really, it's one of those. It's not one of those. You got one of these mindless games that you're just going with the action and you don't think about it. But this one, you really had to put your mind to it, and that's what made it very compelling and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still glad that you like it. Because as I said, still my wife, she played Candy Crush for a while. Well, not Candy Crush, but she's playing one at the moment called Merge Dragons or something, which is a similar sort of thing. But that's not accessible either. So I mean, I can't see why these things can't be made accessible. It's just the companies don't bother.
That's the great question, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Apple, they sort of make you jump through all these, hoops, to submit your app, but there's no standard for accessibility.
That's interesting.
Because I have broken all the guidelines they put up there for the app review. I can't think what ones I've broken, but most of them. But there's not one for accessibility. There's no sort of base level at all. That
would resolve just about every app out there if there were any kind of a low-level base ground accessibility rules, like buttons needs to be labeled this way and things like that. Now, I can understand some of the graphical games you can't, but on a low level, I would think that minimally, please have this accessible. That would be awesome, but I don't know how you would do that for like Unity-based games. Well, a lot of people are using these days, and I know there's accessibility extensions you can add to it. Obviously, we play them now, but not all Unity people are either aware of it or it's just not a requirement or a guideline. And I think it would change things quite a bit.
Or, if you look at it the other way, or just have a tick box saying, is this app accessible, yes or no? Then because I've downloaded ones off the App Store that sound like they should be accessible, but they're not. And you can't get a refund if you pay for it. So just a little tick box to say this is accessible. So
I believe you can get a refund, though.
Oh, I've tried, and I can't.
Oh, really?
I've tried a couple of times. Perhaps it's the way I word it, I don't know. But
now, when you get rejection, are you getting rejections more out of, like, I designed it this way because it's the playability or the functionality seemed to work better with VoiceOver or whatever, and you ever find that they reject things because they don't quite understand what you're doing and it's just a non-substandard?
Well, some of it, they've rejected quite a few things because they think it's a bit, it comes under the design sort of protocol and guidelines they've got. Like all the graphics have got to be, which is fair enough. It's got to be presentable.
That's amazing.
But I've not really come up against accessibility issues. Like what's his name, Marty Schultz, who come up the blindfold games. Where you could just get basically a blank screen. Well, Apple threw his stuff out for a while, and he had to argue like hell to get it back in, and thankfully he has.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And it's interesting to hear from not just one developer, but various developers. And when I start to hear these things from Marty and from you and from other people that have this issue, it really does sound like we need to come up with a plan to discuss with Apple about these issues and how we can put forward. That'd be something that we definitely have to work on. Now, after the Super Tile Smash that you came out with, what was it? Was it Wordfinder?
Wordfinder is the next one I remember.
Or was that before?
Super Tile Smash, then Wordfinder, or was it Night Commander? No.
Wordfinder definitely before Night Commander.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, because last year I started to write Night Commander. Was it last year? The year before? I don't know, I'm losing track. But anyway, I spent most of 1 year, either last year or the year before, whenever, writing Night Commander. And I kind of lost faith in it because it was a totally different app to start with. Like there was no game in it at all. And then I sort of put it to one side, then did Wordfinder. And then I got back to it. I had some idea. But, Night Commander almost got binned, actually, several times.
Really?
It's an incredibly complicated thing to do.
It's a very complex one, isn't it?
Yeah. You got back in the old days, it would have been called a live reporting ordering system or whatever you call it, because that's basically what it is. You've got all these things, each of component parts, and just because you put a game's like spin on it doesn't make it any less complex. It's a very hard app to keep together, really. That's why every time I publish an update, everyone has to delete the thing and reinstall it, which is really annoying, but not an awful lot I can do about that at the moment. I'm still working on it. As it were.
I think that's one thing that stands out about the games is that you do keep updating, and there's a lot of interaction on AppleVis.com with users and taking suggestions. You're really, really open to hearing what people want.
It is a very good place for me because I would say 90 to 95% of my audience is in AppleVis. So from a purely commercial view, it's a very good place to be. Plus, the people are nice.
Yeah.
Even when they're taking my app off, they're still nice.
Well, you got some good feedbacks, and you always get this criticism, and that's not a bad thing. But as complicated as Night Commander, but that was a big thing, though. That was a big deal game. I mean, a lot of people love that kind of game. Yeah.
I sit there and I play it for a little while. But there's a lot I want to do to that app, but it's just a question of getting. There's several routines in it, like the save routine, the load routine. I've got to rewrite from the ground up, basically, because I can't, expecting people to restart over and over again. It's just too much to ask, really.
Yeah, I had, I was going to ask you about that. I had wonder if you have done this game from scratch, or if you've taken some examples and samples out of other developer resources. So you did this from scratch.
Well, yeah.
Wow. And so you put down Knight Commander down, and you initially started that first, but you just decided it was just so complicated, and you just didn't know what direction to go with it.
It was a totally different. Well, it looked totally different. It played totally different, and it was going to be a totally different sort of app.
Oh, wow.
And then I sort of lost confidence in it, and then I brought it back, and then I tried to get it on the App Store, and Apple just kept on rejecting it, and I broke about 12 different rules in total somehow. So I learned an awful lot from it, and I've learned a lot since. So when I do go back to it full time, it should come out the other end a bit better. I like it. You know, it's quite clever.
You're the most patient man I know. I think I would be, I don't know. I know physical object would be flying in the air if I have written for months on end and say, reject, reject, reject. And I'm like, it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
I admire you that you had this idea and you tried, and just kind of put that aside, went to Wordfinder, and then you came back to Knight Commander, which, wow.
Because you write so much code, you know, you sort of invest so much time in it, and you want to play this game, and there's not one out there that is like it. Because my basic premise is I write the games that I want to play. If I can't find what I want to play, I will write it, and if I want to play it, hopefully someone else will. And you know, so far it's proven all right.
So you write these games like the Super Tile Smash, Wordfinder, and Knight Commander, for example. You did those because I wanted to play these kind of games. I couldn't find one. I'm just going to write one myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also that Minesweeper Deluxe thing.
Correct, I mean, which came out later.
I was going to say that's a bit of a throwback. It's fun.
Yeah, because there is a accessible Minesweeper on the App Store. And I played that for a little while, but there's just one thing about it that really annoys me. So I thought, well, I'll do my own. So I did.
You know, that would be cool. I would love to just think this. You know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to just write my own stuff here. Here we go. That's fascinating because, there was an accessible Minesweeper many years ago, and it hasn't been touched or updated for eons. Yeah. But yours is different, though. First of all, it was made for low vision. You're able to scroll around, and that made it really compelling.
Well, as I say, I try and make them for blind types, VI types, and sighted types. It's not easy to get it all on one screen, but you can. Mm-hmm. You try and aim it for as wide an audience as possible.
Well, I tell you what, when that game came out, I was all ears. I was like, my eyes just went wide open. Minesweeper. And it's funny because, some of the younger generation that are listening to this, I would mention, oh my gosh, there's Minesweeper. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, don't you remember Minesweeper back in the Windows days? They're like, no.
Thomas, I'm not young, but I never played it. But I downloaded here when John and I got pretty addicted pretty fast. I got to say, because it makes you think. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of sat there playing, the previous version a lot, and then it just got me annoyed because the interface wasn't very fluid. Like you had to push buttons just to get it going. I thought there must be a better way of doing this. So I did. So, and it came out all right. I was quite pleased with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you took out the whole starting stuff. I mean, as soon as you open up, it was ready to go. Yeah. And your grid was there. And what I liked about it is that from day one, we will have to admit it was a little bit rough. But as soon as you got some feedbacks from AppleVis or people that emailed you, you have updated to the point where, wow, this was totally different than it was from day one, which was saying a lot. Yeah. Saying a lot about you sticking in there and getting that complication up for us to be able to enjoy it.
I sort of take the viewpoint, if someone's going to be good enough to pay money for my stuff, then I've got a duty of care to that person. If they're going to post a say they want something and it's feasible doing, I'll do it. Because I do take it. I take it as it's a nice thing, really. Someone has bothered to put their hard-earned shekels into my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So the least I can do is support them.
Yeah, no, definitely to support you. I will say the Knight Commander. I have never. I don't know. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but I would say the generation, as in responses back to comments and leaving feedback, was probably one of the biggest, hands down, game of all of them when it comes to a number of participants replying back. I mean, we're talking.
It's in the hundreds.
I was like, holy smokes.
And a lot of it is, why won't it work? Because every time I publish an update, you got to restart the thing, which is a flaw in the program, basically.
True, but I think it shows there's a lot of love for the game.
Yeah. I mean, I was staggered by some of the people, because they'd say that they got sort of 20 million gold and hundreds of people. Well, not hundreds of people, because you only have 100 at the moment, anyway. But they got loads of people and oodles of this and oodles of that. They must have been playing it for days and weeks. God. It makes you think, because I never expected people to get so far in the game as quickly as they did. I was sort of writing it and thinking, well, they won't get there for at least a month or so. 2 days later, they were there.
There was definite appetite for that kind of game, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And have you always just been interested in games, or have you ever tried anything else?
Games is, I keep trying to think of things, like tools or things that I need. But I haven't found one. I can't find one. I normally look on the App Store and find what I need. I've yet to find something that I need to write.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, I can write most things if I need to, and probably apps will be a little bit easier than games because you then take out the graphical, and the interface problem. So.
Yeah. Thomas, any requests?
Oh my gosh! There's so many games I had back in the day that were so visually fun. I've always missed some of the games. You guys ever remember back in the days there was a game called Scorched Earth, and all it is, it's just on the one screen. There could be 2 up to 8 people on one screen, and you get a random landscape, and then your little base gets placed somewhere on the landscape. So you're just this little itty-bitty blot, and just think of yourself a little tank, and you can't move. But you can move your turret, or I should say your guns up and down. So you have to find the right angle, and then you just lobby little volleys of bursts to another player. So you just shoot this bombshell, and you try to hit the other player. So it's a turn by turn, and of course you got wind, and gravity, and
I do remember.
Oh yeah. Now I get you.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, I was so loved that as a blind, and I think you could. I mean, you think about it. It's like I shoot. Mm-hmm. It'll tell me what my velocity is and what angle my turn is, and then when I shoot, it'll just say you overshot by 300 yards, or you undershot by 200 on player 2. I mean, I think you could do it. There'll be a lot of calculation involved, but I couldn't see why you couldn't do it. But that is one of my biggest one I've always wanted to have and miss a lot.
Well, at the moment, it's kind of spooky.
Yes.
I'm sort of I have to write at least 3 or 4 things at a time. Otherwise, I get sort of fixated on one thing at a time. One of them is a dice fighter type RPG thing at the moment. That's the top thing at the moment. But one of them is called Tank Battle, and that's almost exactly what you've said.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but it's there's a file on the computer. So you never know, it could be coming out.
That would be fantastic. I would be first in line.
Uh-huh.
I would pay top bucks for it, too. No, I think what you've done is incredibly awesome. And now I have to ask a hard question. Now, do you find one game one of your most favorite than the others? more rewarding?
Well, the one I normally play is Wordfinder.
Oh, wow.
Because it's mind-numbingly hard.
It is.
Like you'll never get. I mean, it's the one bugbear that people have got with the thing is that it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I've looked through the dictionary and it's a official Scrabble dictionary. There are words in there that you would never use, but they are valid. Mm-hmm. So, when it says, 2,000 words, there are 2,000 words.
And you've got 50 and you think you've done well. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, my wife played it, and she gets 700 words.
Wow.
And you think, wow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's just something that you can just sit there and just while away a bit of time. I don't tend to play an awful lot of them because I'm normally bug testing my current one, as it were. Like I'll do 5 or 6 hours a day, or 5 hours a day, or 4 hours, whatever. And then the rest of the time I'll sit there and play it and see where the bugs are and see what I've got to do to it next.
Mm.
But I do go back to Night Commander, and I mean, they're all sitting on the iPad now. So.
Of course.
Pick them up and play them.
Well, John, one of the things I'm wondering, and I'm sure a lot of us are, that you got some absolutely awesome games under your belt now. I'm sure that you're probably it's probably getting a little easier to do since now you got some of these things done and over with. But you said you said that you have like so many projects open at once. I am curious, what can we expect in the near future? Anything that you can talk about or want to talk about?
The current one is the current top one at the moment. Because I tend to do about 4 or 5 of them. It stops me fixating on the actual code base.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I don't sleep very well. Because if you get, you sort of get the code in your head, you go over it and over it. But if you've got 4 or 5 of them, you can't do that. But at the moment, the top one is Dice Fighter. It's a sort of it's a cross between Dungeons and Dragons, with dice. You throw dice and you get 6 attack dice and defend and spells and armor and all this, and you can put money in the bank. And the other part of it is that you sort of move your little icon around a map, that's got bridges and water and keys and things come along and attack you. It's a bit of a mix at the moment, and it's going to be a hard sell, but it's going to be another complicated one, I'm afraid.
Oh, I can imagine. So you're talking about like, please forgive me, I always think old games. You ever heard of Ultima? Ultima was kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons game where you had a map and you're this character and you just start moving around. Like there's no really like objective or anything. You just go and if you find different places like, oh, here's a mountain, so let's go up here, and then that would be like its own little area of games that you can play that's within the mountains area, or there'll be one by the river that you can fight different things, and as you're fighting things, you're increasing levels and things like that.
It's similar to that sort of thing. See, I'm quite old. I mean, I can go right back to I don't know if this will ring a bell with Dave, the ZX Spectrum days.
Mm-hmm. I remember the Spectrum, yeah.
Do you remember things called Ultimate Play the Game, the company? And they used Saber Wolf and Alienate and all that sort of thing. Where you sort of run around this sort of, it was isometric viewpoint.
Okay.
You sort of run around and these little things come around and after you, and it's similar to that sort of thing. It's very crude at the moment, and it's probably going to stay crude for quite some time because there's an awful lot in it. And that's the main one, which is going to take a while. So I can see that being shelved and picked up again later. But as you mentioned, Tank Battle, that one, I was going to do it where you sort of tilt your device as well as thing. You can sort of, tilt the device for the elevation of your gun.
Yeah.
Tap the screen and then the power, you tilt it and tap it and boom, you go shoot people.
Yep.
That sort of thing. I mean, that in theory should be quite simple. It never comes out in practice, but it sounds it.
Well, that's exactly what that's that's exactly what the game I have been waiting for forever and ever. I mean, you would. I was surprised that, in a way, it was surprising that you would go back to another game that would be as complicated and gut wrenching it was to make Knight Commander, to do this one. And
well, that's kind of what I did Wordfinder and Minesweeper.
Yes.
It's a gap in between them. But I can see this one being a headache as well.
That was Thomas trying to talk you into doing Tank Battle first.
Exactly. So I see Tank Battle coming out first. It's kind of a, just kind of a come down to earth a little bit, just in between the complicated games, and then you can go back and work on the other one.
Well, if you want to pay top dollar.
Oh my gosh! Now, so you work part time now?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So you do this full time, and and so all the money that you raise will help you.
This is what I have my income from.
Okay, yeah. Bank Tattle will probably have to come last.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, that's
fun.
It could be made possible, to make it for visual as well, quite easily. That's why I don't understand these other firms. I mean, I try and download one app per day off the App Store that I think, from the description or whatever, could be accessible. And you very rarely get past the title screen before you realise it's not. They're just not accessible, even to the point where the button to start the thing is accessible.
Games especially are just very difficult to find accessible games.
I don't make a living out of this at all. I mean, it supplements my income, as I say. I mean, in the UK, I'm very lucky where we live because we got the welfare state at the moment, anyway, and I get benefits basically.
Right. So you just love doing this. That's why these come out. It's supplemental. Any additional money coming out of it is gravy, but it's very helpful. But I enjoy. So you have a passion of absolutely want to do this.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's either that or you sit there and you watch daytime telly, which will drive you nuts. I think a couple of bucks is fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to put in, sort of get someone on board to do graphics or sound or something, then perhaps I'd go to a $5. But I've seen apps on there that you think, no, I'm not paying that. I don't care how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny though, when you think like Minesweeper, I think was 99 cents, and the amount of time you can get, of enjoyment out of that for €1 in my case is
very cheap.
It's fantastic value.
It's nominal. It's very nominal. I believe the Super Smash Tile is $199 US, and I believe your Knight Commander is $499 US, and all three are perfectly priced for what you are getting out of the game. You ever feel like sometimes you ever get a lot of criticism and feedback that is just so hatred that you just almost just want to hang up your shoes and say, you know what, I'm not going to make any more games for you? You ever get that?
There have been times when you sort of stare at the screen and you have to stop yourself from replying, basically, because what you put down wouldn't be very, shall we say, beneficial to the business. Because you have to, it wouldn't be very polite, basically. You think, really? You really think that, Lovey?
Tell us how you really feel, John.
I couldn't do that because we get taken off the air. It frustrates me to death when I see developers like yourself or anyone else that criticism and feedback is one thing, but there's a red line when you're getting absurdly rude or asking way too much or asking for something that's impossible or I financially or budgetly I can't do that or a lot of various reasons, but they just will just hang on you like they were a tick, and it's just oh my gosh, I feel your pain, but more for your games I have seen way more positive things. And well, I mean, some of the people, they are really, really nice. You just go that extra mile for those people. But and as you say, most of them are, very, very
Absolutely,
nice.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all feedback is welcome, but some is more welcome than others, shall we say?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that just about wraps it up here. I'd like to say huge thanks to you, John, for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Right, fine, yeah, thanks.
We're looking forward to your future games, no doubt.
Yes. Whatever they are, John, we're looking forward to them.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the AppleVis Extra. To learn more about us, visit our website at www.applevis.com. Follow us on Twitter @AppleVis and like us on Facebook.